The Andy Dew Show on CA-TV. It's expensive, isn't it?
I never intended to become a sports writer, particularly a basketball sports writer. The assignment was sort of given to me when I got my first job on the newspaper here in this city. I remember the man who gave me that assignment, Doc Mason. He was the editor at the newspaper. He was an old guy, gray hair, gray mustache, kind of serious most of the time, but he could smile and tell a joke every now and then. He was the one who decided that I would be a sports writer. He called me into his office the very first day that I came to work for the city newspaper. And he said, "Robert, you're going to be my sports writer. Particularly, you're going to cover basketball." I said, "Mr. Mason, I don't really know anything about covering basketball and stuff like that." He said, "Well, son, let me tell you." He said, "If you want to work at this newspaper, you'd better learn about covering basketball and stuff like that." So that's exactly what I did, and I did it in a hurry. I remember the very first assignment that I covered for the paper. There were a bunch of wealthy fellas in town who were supposedly trying to start up a women's professional basketball league. And it was my assignment to find out what was going on. So I met with some of the fellas and I told them, I said, "Look, I'm a new writer on the city newspaper, and I hear you fellas are trying to start up a professional women's basketball league." I said, "That's mighty big news." I said, "I want to know all about that." So these fellas all kind of smiled and grinned and winked at each other, put their arm on my shoulder and said, "Hey, come here, fella, let me tell you what's going on." They said, "Listen, we're not really trying to start a professional women's basketball league. Say, that's just a little game we're playing with the people. Say, it's a good way to meet people, good way to get our names in the paper, and it's a good way to meet women. So that's all we're doing, kid." Said, but say we'll just string the people along as we can, and then we'll just kind of let the whole thing die down. But so that's what we're really trying to do. We're not really trying to start a women's professional basketball league. He said, "But don't write anything about this now." He said, "You just keep putting in there that that's what we're trying to do." I said, "Oh, so you don't mean to put anything in the paper about this sham that you guys put?" He said, "Oh, no, boy, don't do anything like that." I said, "Oh, okay." So naturally, I went back and wrote up a truthful story and told everything. And boy, when the news hit the public, there was such an outcry, there was such an outrage. All of these guys were in big trouble, not only with the people, but with the professional sports and possibly even the law. And oh my goodness, they had to do some kind of lying and explaining to try to get themselves out of that mess. And while they were doing all that, a few of them managed to get a hold of me, and they said, "You low down dirty little skunk, you went and printed everything we told you not to print." They said, "We're going to get you for this." So sure enough, I found out from one of the female basketball players that these wealthy guys had hired a few guys to look me up and work me over to get revenge against me. So the newspaper hired a bodyguard to follow me around for, it must have been 2 months. And I got sick of that. So I went to a couple of the wealthy fellas who had been trying to put that sham over on the public. And I said, listen fellas, I know all about these guys you've hired to work me over, beat me up, get revenge for what I wrote about you. I said, I'm sick of it. I said, I'm sick of the whole thing. I said, you call off your dogs. I said, I'm not going to take any more of this. I said, if you don't, I'll go to the law. So I heard real quick that they had called off their dogs. I had no more worry about being beaten up or anything like that. And they apologized to the public for the sham that they were trying to pull. And so everything just sort of died down, and it all kind of faded away. But I became quite well known because of that story. And so as a result of becoming well known, well, I was able to get better stories about basketball and other areas of sports. I remember the next story I covered was about a fella named Bobby Swine. Oh, what a rhythmic name that is, Bobby Swine. Bobby Swine was a high school star. Oh my goodness, he was a great basketball player. He led the high school in scoring all 3 years that he played on the high school team. And he even took the team to the state championship in his senior year. And they almost won. They only lost by 3 points. And everybody figured Bobby would go on to the NBA and become a big professional star. Something happened. Something bad happened. Nobody knows what, but Bobby never did become a star. He really became sort of a bum. He just sort of drifted here, there, in and out of jobs. He wound up having a short life. Some people said it was suicide. Others said he had the misfortune of fooling around with the wife of a jealous man. Anyway, somebody put an end to Bobby Swine. He did not live a very long life, I'm sad to say, but to this day I still remember Bobby Swine, the great basketball player, and I always will. I remember another story I covered. It was about a guy named Raymond Bozar. Now Raymond was a mediocre basketball player at best, but he was so tall, everybody figured sooner or later he had to turn into a great basketball player. So all through his junior high school and high school, he played basketball, just barely holding on, never doing anything fantastic. Somehow he managed to make it to the NBA. And son of a gun, he held on there for about 3 years, but finally the team that he was with gave up on him and got rid of him. Now, Raymond's dad was real angry and sad about all of this because he figured Raymond should have been a star, and he never forgave him for that. So Raymond, after he left the NBA, he just sort of disappeared. Nobody ever knew what had happened to him or anything. And many years later, he came into my office one day at the newspaper. I was shocked to see him. He said, "Do you remember me?" I said, "Are you Raymond Bozar?" He said, "Yep." I said, "That's me." He said, "Mr. Robert Bale, I want you to do me a favor. He said, you know, my dad has never forgiven me for not becoming a great basketball star. He said, would you please write a story in the newspaper telling him how sorry I am that I disappointed him and that I wish we could be closer as father and son. I wish he would forgive me. Would you do that for me, Mr. Robert Bale? I thought it over. I said, okay, Raymond, I'll do that. So I wrote a very beautiful column telling all about the life of Raymond Bozar, the man who was expected to be a big basketball star and never made it. And I guess the story must have worked because Raymond called me and thanked me. And the last I heard about him, he and his dad had gone into business together. I forget what kind of business it was they had gone into, but I heard they were doing pretty good. So that made me feel real nice to know that I had had a part in bringing about their reunion. I really felt good about that. Another one of my interesting stories that I covered was all about Timothy Delmar. Timothy Delmar was the winningest coach DeLotte University ever had. Oh, that man won so many basketball games. But Timothy got old, and he got a little bit forgetful. And his teams began to lose more games than they won. And so the university decided it was time to let Mr. Timothy Delmar go. And it was a very sad affair. Timothy didn't take it well at all. He was very angry, very hurt, very sad. The week that he was fired, he disappeared. He was gone for a whole week. The whole city was wondering, where in the world is Timothy Delmar? His family didn't even know where he was. So I called on some of my contacts and other sources, and I tracked down Timothy Delmar. I found him in a rundown hotel on a sleazy part of town. He was holed up in a room, hadn't shaved for a week, hadn't bathed for a week. I said, Timothy, what in the world are you doing? He said, well, Robert, you've known me a long time. Said, my being fired by the university was a shock that I just couldn't stand at first. And he said, I've been holed up in this hotel room for a week just thinking about my life, wondering how I was going to go on, what I was going to do. He said, but I think I've come up with the answer, and he said, I'll be rejoining the human race real soon. He said, don't worry about me, I'm not going to do anything crazy. He said, I'll be okay. He said, trust me, I'll be okay. And sure enough, Timothy was okay. He rejoined the human race. He opened up a basketball school, teaching young boys and girls how to play basketball. And it has become a very successful basketball school. He's still running that school today, still doing quite well. So I'm very proud to know Mr. Timothy Delmar, the basketball coach, and also Mr. Timothy Delmar, the retired citizen running a basketball school for youngsters. Now, another story that didn't have quite a happy ending was one concerning Kenneth Trabar. Oh, Kenneth Trabar was a fantastic high school basketball star, a fantastic college basketball star. Oh my goodness, everybody figured he would join the pros and just be absolute dynamite. Everything was working in his favor. It looked like he was really going to be a superstar. But then Kenneth did something real stupid. He started betting on college basketball games. And somebody found out about it. Kenneth tried to deny it at first, but I tracked him down. I said, Kenneth, I've known you for a few years now. I said, you know that I'm an honest man. I said, you look me right in the eye and you tell me that all of this stuff I've heard about you is a lie, that you haven't been betting on college games. I said, you tell me it's a lie, Kenneth. But Kenneth couldn't do that. He said, Robert, it's all true. He said, I've been doing exactly what the people have accused me of doing. So I had to write the truthful story, and Kenneth called a press conference and admitted that he had lied, that he really had been betting on college basketball games. So that was the end of his college career, the end of his dreams of playing in the NBA and everything. I was hoping he would straighten up and become a square fellow, but he never did. He's still living that bad life, associating with low-life people, gangsters, gamblers, all this type stuff. Every now and then I'll pick up a newspaper and I'll read about him being arrested for this, arrested for that. But he gets out on bail and goes back to living that pitiful life that he lives. What a shame. He could have been such a great star. Kenneth Trabar. What a shame. You know, yesterday I was driving by Hancock High School and I saw a pitiful sight. I saw a guy on the basketball court and he was dribbling the ball and shooting, but he was having a very difficult time doing that because he had a bum leg. He had a stiff leg. So I parked my car and walked over closer to see who this guy was, and I was stunned when I realized it was Kelly Bannister. 10 years ago, Kelly Bannister was a high school star in this city. Oh boy, he was a fantastic basketball star in this city. He was another guy that everybody figured would go on to play college ball and then go on to the NBA and be a superstar. He made it to college for half a season. During one of the games, he had an accident with a player on the opposing team, and he messed up his knee. And that was the end of his college basketball career, the end of his dreams of playing pro ball and everything. That was the end of his life as an athlete. He had many operations on that knee, but finally the doctors told him it would never be any better. But he never gave up hope. Kelly Bannister never gave up hope. And so 10 years later, here he is out there on a school playground, still trying to dribble and shoot basketball. I hollered to him. I said, "Hey, Kelly Bannister, right?" He says, "Hey, Mr. Robert Bell, the sports writer." I said, "Yeah." So we stood and talked for a while. I said, "Kelly, what are you doing?" He said, "Oh, Mr. Bell, I'm practicing my basketball." He said, "The old leg is getting better. It's getting a little bit limber." He said, "I'm going to be able to actually play basketball again sometime soon." He says, "Everybody thinks I'm crazy, but I'm not." He says, "I'm going to be that big basketball star that I should have been." He said, "My leg is going to get better and I'm going to be that star." Said, "You believe me, don't you, Mr. Bell?" And what could I say? I said, "Well, Kelly, it's not important what I believe. it's only important what you believe. I said, do you really think that you're going to get your leg all right and you're going to go back and play basketball? I said, after all, you're what, 29 years old now maybe? He said, yeah, but I'm still young. He said, I'm still young enough to play a few years in the pros. I said, oh, I see. He said, so I'm going to make it, Mr. Bell. I'm going to make it. He said, remember I told you now. I said, all right, Kelly, I'll remember. I said, I sure will remember. So when I left him, he was still hobbling around on that bad leg, dribbling the ball, shooting baskets. Still dreaming of getting back into shape and being a star in the NBA. I suppose he'll go on dreaming until he's too old to dream. But I certainly didn't want to say anything to destroy his dreams. And so I didn't. Now tomorrow, I will attend a dinner at one of the high schools here in the city. And I'll have the opportunity to meet a lot of the young men who will be playing basketball for the different high schools this coming season. And you know, most of those young men will be dreaming of being future college stars and future NBA stars. Why shouldn't they dream? After all, dreaming is a big part of this thing we call basketball. And I suppose as long as I'm able to pick up a pencil and write on a piece of paper, I'll keep writing stories about the men and women who play this game called basketball. Fascinating way of life.